There's something in the water this week for Spring 23 anime. Whether it was kicking off the anime week with that Demon Slayer greatness having arguably one of the best episodes of the series, the next day Vinland Saga decided to follow up with that Pain, that top tier 10 out of 10 masterpiece, Oshinoko self-explanatory, oh my god my heart is still aching. Dr. Stone decided to drop one of the most important episodes since the beginning of the show. And here we are with episode 8 of Heavenly Delusion, and the bait and switch, whether it was the fake out death last week, to the oh my god, this doctor story was so much more compelling than I first thought. There's something in the water this week for anime, and I'm here for it because all my favorite shows are getting their best episodes. Now, full live reaction episode 8 is available on my Patreon if you do want to see my full uncut thoughts. This episode threw me for a loop. I mean, I didn't trust either side last week. I said the protesters, the doctor, it feels like you shouldn't really trust anyone involved. But ultimately, I still found myself really shocked the fact that instead of making this doctor who, I mean, when you see this prosthetic limb on this woman who was freaking out last week, you're like, okay, we got a mad scientist doctor. They do the whole fake out death with our character Kiriko, and ultimately, I mean, if you lose a leg down there, I mean, you got a prosthetic doctor upstairs, so it made all sense. And to see an episode like this, where I really thought we were getting a Mass Effect 2 Overlord DLC situation, where someone kept experimenting upon experimenting to the point where they're no longer human, turns out it was actually a tragic love story. Someone trying their best to save someone they care about, as they casually reveal so much information about the monsters in this world. And just see the fact that you have someone just casually make remarks like, this girl's thanking you for the eye, and you're like, okay, so that's why he wears an eye patch. He literally gave up his eye for this character. And to see the fact that it's not because he was some sick bastard, some sick and twisted individual. No, all he was doing was, as they quickly say in this episode, it's very easy to gloss over, the fact that the only way seemingly to save someone who's infected is to cut away the infection, but as seen by this character, that's pretty much impossible. We know it's the heart area where it seemingly is located, and the fact that this entire episode was all about building into giving a human a death, and the price you have to pay for doing so. I mean, a doctor who really had no interest in helping people other than this person, and the fact that everyone from across the land came because who else is going to give you a prosthetic limb in the apocalypse? To see him lose his entire reason for living after realizing there's nothing more he can do, or a character like Maru looking at his hands as a tool of killing rather than a tool to save lives. It's just such a powerful episode across the board, and when you see him break down in tears, I thought that would be the big moment. But when that gun gets pulled, I was praying that bird was going to get shot. Not to say I hate birds by any means, but there was two directions you go in that moment. He decides not to pull the trigger on himself, and he fires at the bird, saying, not today, I'll hang on, I still got more to do in this life. Or the bird would fly away and he would shoot himself. And sadly, he shot himself. He had nothing left to live for, and not really to, promote what he did. At the end of the day, there isn't a lot to live for in a world like this anyway, so I can kind of understand the purpose when your purpose is literally dead in your arms, right? And I think that's what's brilliant, because everyone in my comments section, and from what I saw, we're talking online about this doctor, everyone had the heebie-jeebies. They're like, okay, we don't want to trust this dude. He seems psycho. He has that energy that's like, oh, we're about to get experimented on. I recently saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, great movie, but goddamn, I mean, some of those prosthetic limbs were giving me some flashbacks from that movie, and I'm like, okay, this dude's gonna be psycho. He's gonna be experimenting on us. And the fact that the first interaction we have post-garage area is someone running up smiling saying, thank you for helping me. And I'm like, okay, this is good. This is interesting. The first interaction we had was someone who was apparently experimented on, had a very negative opinion. So now we're seeing it from different perspectives. So I was expecting it was going to be a little muddy, a little gray, but I wasn't expecting black or white. And that's kind of what we got by the end. The White Cloaks are psycho. I mean, they were slitting throats. They were just completely on a rampage, as this hospital were just trying to keep the people inside safe, as you have a man that at face value it looks like you're doing these horrible experimentations, but when in fact, as it said, this disease, which we've had a taste of at the facility, which we get a little bit of this episode, not too much, but some of those characters, they had that marking all over their skin, and seemingly that's the sign of the infection that turns a human into the monsters that they fight in this world. At this point, it definitely feels like that facility is the past, mainly because I've been tiptoeing for a while, but I'm going to put my feelings on It Is the Past again, mainly because the fish is still the biggest thing for me. The fact that someone predicted the fish would happen and then it appeared in Maru and Kiru's world, right? Or at least their time period. The fact that we know people can turn into monsters, it's all starting to line up a bit more to me that this facility is either trying to craft those kids into being, a way to avoid them from ever turning, or potentially harnessing that power for themselves. That's my prediction right now, but really I don't have a strong opinion one way or another. This show has really broke my mind on really being able to theory craft hard, but that's kind of where I'm going to put my money right now. I will say that dream though, the fact that the kid's all like, hey, I had this dream and it was kind of happy because someone was there. If that isn't a death flag, I don't know what is, because if you're going alone in a cave and someone's pulling you, I don't know, to me that says like you're about to die at some point. I mean, people drawing fish turn out to actually have fish come to life in this world, so yeah, I think this whole facility is screwed at some point in time. And if that's the case, what is the heaven they're actually looking for if heaven potentially has already fallen? Maybe it's an entire bait and switch. Heaven is completely different than the quote-unquote heaven we sometimes see in this show. But either way, this was a bait and switch, and I love the fact that whether it was the fake out last week of thinking Kiriko was going to die, because even though I thought they were going to save Kiru, at the end of the day, you were cutting off a leg or you're cutting off an arm. Those are things that can be replaceable, and I mean, it's not my first rodeo where whether it's Robert Kurtman with Rick Grimes casually cutting his arm off at the beginning of Walking Dead. Anyone who complains about spoilers, the comic's been out for a long time. Don't at me. There's shows that do that, and the fact that you literally establish that, hey, the characters can end up with prosthetics. It's an easy to believe thing because in the moment you don't think of it as a hallucination, or at least a lot of people won't. And whether it's this doctor who had that psycho energy, the fact that very quickly you realize he cares, he just doesn't show it. Like, he wouldn't put those limbs on people if he didn't care, but at the same time he seemingly is focused on something else. And then we get the punchline of this, that message, thank you for caring about me, thank you for giving me your eye, thank you for letting me die as a human, but most importantly, thank you for loving me. Like, that hit right in the heart. Like, holy hell did that hurt. And just to see them so upset when they realized that he took his life, I mean, this was an absolutely masterpiece of an episode and is certified as a masterpiece in my eyes. I mean, there's some good cliffhangers and good baits. There was one monster that they didn't kill underneath the car, which looks very similar to the chomper of teeth that basically, was cutting apart, even if it was a hallucination, our character's legs and limbs. And we also have a lead on Robin, who apparently a couple years back was studying under this doctor and was tasked at like wanting to be able to help similar to him. So there's leads, there's a lot of plot threads that are continuing to build up, and with another 5 episodes to go, given that this is a 13 episode anime, I mean, this show is only getting better, and man, the anime this week have been absolutely masterpieces, and I'm not even done watching all the shows airing this week, but goddamn, that's how you know you have something special. But let me know what you thought down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Also be sure to ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload on the channel. And like I mentioned, we do have a full live reaction available on my Patreon where you can also get a video shout out like a few are getting today. So right now we have Sharon, Weaponized Panda, Nugzio, and Anton. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.